Do you want to be an investor? Do you want to invest in a smart way? Then this advice is something that you must listen to. In fact, I think this is one of the most important advice that you could ever get in terms of investing. With that said, let's begin. Hello guys, welcome to Book Ideas, where we tell you interesting ideas from interesting book. The idea or the one of the most important financial advice or investment advice that we are going to be talking about today is from the book The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. Amazing book. If you want to get the book, you can click the link in the description. Now, geologists, they can look at rocks, data on rocks many years behind, and they can predict how the earth works. Doctors can take all the data that is available on kidney and still treat kidney today depending on that. Why? Because kidney works the same way today as it did many years ago. 100, 200, 300 years ago, it still works the same. But when you look at people who look at finance like this, who look at finance or who looks at investing as a hard skill, something different happens. That different thing is called as historians as profit is what the author says. Now, what is this, and what does this have to do with your financial your investing? So he said one thing. When you look, one thing that you can understand from history of many events that have occurred that has impacted the economy, one thing is that our world is unpredictable. Our world is unpredictable. We don't know what big innovation can happen next. So it's really hard to look at past events and use it as an exact guide to invest for our future. Stanford professor Scott Sagan, he once said that everyone who follows the economy or investment markets, what they should hang on their wall is things that have never happened before will happen all the time. Things that have never happened before happen all the time. So what do you do with this? One problem is there are a lot of investors, according to the author, who rely on past events as a future guide. He said there are two dangerous things that happen if you do this, if you rely too much on past events. Number one, you will likely miss out the outlier events that move the needle the most. Now, one of the biggest things that impacted economy is he just says that 15 billion people were born in 19th and 20th centuries. But try to imagine how different the global economy and the whole world would be today if just 7 of them never existed. In that list, he gives about Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin, Mao Zedong, Gavrilo Princip, Thomas Edison, Bill Gates, Martin Luther King. He also gives events such as how different would our world be if these events wouldn't have happened. Great Depression, World War II, the Manhattan Project, vaccines, antibiotics, ARPANET, September 11th, the 9/11 attack, and the fall of Soviet Union. A lot of different things would have happened, but many of these events were kind of unpredictable. The way they impacted the market was massive. There were thousands of events like this. Thousands of events. There are terrorist attacks, there are health issues, there are breakouts, and there's so many things. But these were some of the events that had the biggest change on the financial market. This is something which we would miss to consider when we are making investment, which could be a big issue. He also gives an interesting incident. He said in 2017 he had attended a dinner party, and Daniel Kahneman, who is the author of I can't recall the book, but he wrote a very famous book. If you put Daniel Kahneman, you can find his book. Amazing book. He is someone who talked about patterns of thinking that can actually impair your decision. People ask them how investors should respond when their forecasts are wrong, which tend to happen a lot. They predict something and it doesn't happen. So he said, whenever we are surprised by something, even if we admit that we made a mistake, we say, oh, I'll never make that mistake again. But in fact, what you should learn when you make a mistake, because you did not anticipate something is that the world is difficult to anticipate. That's the correct lesson to learn from surprises. The world is surprising. Now, this is the second dangerous thing that could happen. If you look at history as a guide for your investing, history can be misleading guide to the future of the economy and stock market because it doesn't account for structural changes that are relevant today in the world. One example is right now there are many venture capital firms, but 25 years ago it barely existed. One venture capital firm right now is bigger than the whole industry, venture capital industry that was there 25 years ago. This is a big change. Phil Knight, who's the founder of Nike, in his book Shoe Dog, he writes about back then entrepreneurs did not have these venture capital firms. They had to go to bankers with no creativity, not much creativity. I'm paraphrasing, but somewhat that's kind of what he said. And this means that if you don't take into account many of these big changes that will happen structurally, many new industries that come up, even then you will be missing out on a lot of opportunities. Now, to make this point, he gives an example. So Benjamin Graham, the book The Intelligent Investor, this is known as the Bible of investing, where a lot of people who invest in stock market or who invest in various things give as an example. So when Morgan Housel, he said that he read it as a teenager and he felt like it was a it was a guide to get rich. Simple, easy, apply the strategies guide. And many strategies made sense to him. But one thing he realized is this: there are many people who read, but he barely knows anyone who used Benjamin Graham's strategy to get rich. He barely knew few people. Now what's going on? You might say that, maybe Benjamin Graham was a scammer or he was a liar or something like that. But Morgan Housel says he was someone who was practical. He was able to make decision based on what was going on then. He was able to make a decision based on practicality, on the basis that world is unpredictable. Those strategies may not work for you depending on the situation that you are in or the changes that you might be going through right now. Now he has died. It's a pretty old book, but still, it was a very practical book for Benjamin Graham at the time. It has great value, it has great content, but you have to make changes when you are applying it in your situation. With that said, guys, one big takeaway from this is don't look at historians as prophets. People predict something will happen, many times it won't. People predict it will, sometimes it does. So thing is, understand world is unpredictable, and do not make investment based on only predictions. There are many other data that you have to look at. Go look at many other finance videos, you'll understand it. Thank you so much for watching. If you felt like you found some value from this video, if you felt like, you need to wake up right now, you should not try to predict a world that is unpredictable, then leave a like and hit that subscribe button. With that said, this is Abhishek signing off. I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.